Welcome back, ciao guys. I'm Mike with thegentlemanracer.com, and today we are in Dayton, Ohio at Gerstner Sons. We're going to go and explore how this 120-year-old company is still making things in the USA. Dayton, Ohio, once a powerhouse of American industry, a city of invention, innovation, and manufacturing might. From the Wright brothers to cash registers and car parts, this town helped build the modern world. But over the decades, factories closed, industries moved, and today, much of that legacy is gone, except for one company, Gerstner Sons. Gerstner Sons has been handcrafting wooden tool chests here since 1906, and they're still at it. So how this relates to kind of the car world is Gerstner Sons is one of the original manufacturers of toolboxes and machinist chests, and to this day they're still making really cool made in the USA toolboxes, chests, and tool storage solutions here in the US. Step inside the Gerstner showroom and it feels like you're walking into a living museum. Glass cases showcase more than a century of craftsmanship. From early machinist chests to rare custom pieces, if you ring the bell, you might even be met by one of the founder, Harry Gerstner's descendants, who are still carrying on the family legacy today.
I'm Kim Brown. Harry Gerstner was my great-grandfather. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and I run the international line, do all of the procurement from start to finish. Harry was a pattern maker. He actually went into the business and he was working at places like Smith Barney Works for railroad cars, and he was learning to become a pattern maker. And he was looking at the tool chests that were available at the time and didn't seem to see anything that he liked on a workbench that was comfortable to use. And his father had been a cooper, so barrel maker, so he learned a little bit about woodworking from his father. So he decided in his nights and weekends kind of trying to tinker around and make his own tool chest while he was finishing his apprenticeship. And at the end of his apprenticeship, he went to his boss when he graduated, and he had a $100 bonus for graduating, and he asked him for a raise. You know, he said, I'd like a raise. I think I've done a good job. And the boss at the time said, no, you know, you got your bonus, and that's all we're going to do. So he said, well, thank you. He said, but I think I'd like to try my own thing. So he quit and finished the tool chest, and then started having other people ask him about, you know, hey, where was that made? That seems to be better than anything on the market right now. So, you know, where can I get one of those? So the idea was born and he filled the need.
To see how it all comes together, we were given rare access behind the scenes, a full tour of the workshop with Bert Wilson, their Vice President of Operations.
Hey, my name's Bert Wilson, Vice President of Operations, and I run the production here at Gerstner Sons.
This is where raw lumber becomes heirloom quality chests, built to last for generations. Every chest starts with raw lumber, oak, walnut, or cherry, chosen for strength and beauty. Each board is inspected by hand, and only the best pieces make the cut.
This area here is our rough cut area. This is where we get the raw lumber that comes in from our suppliers. So we use primarily oak, walnut, and cherry, and you can see the lumber in the rough here. We will, however, if a customer requires a certain type of wood, we will order that special order to spec. So if they want bird's eye maple or beech or any other wood, we can order that and make their product out of it. So here's a batch of walnut as we would typically receive it from the supplier. And one of the things we'll do is the operator will go through and start a defecting process where we start cutting out the defects in the material. Now you can look at this walnut here. This piece of walnut has a lot of sap in it. So for a heartwood product, this would be considered a defect. We would not use this. We would also look for discolored sections, any splits, any knots, and we would remove that from the material or remove that from the part that we're using in the toolbox. So each of the woods is going to have characteristics that are not desirable. So on the walnut, that tends to be the sap material. When we move to cherry, you can start running into problems in the material with mineral. Mineral will be the dark spots and the dark lines. We'll cut around that. Cherry also has a little bit of sapwood that we have to be worried about, but it's not as bad as the walnut. And then the gold standard for us is the quarter sawn white oak. And it's a fairly easy material to work with. We do have some sap. With the oak, we'll run into splits and cracks from the drying process, so that'll all get cut out as well. So the operator will go through here, and that's why the unique things about the hardwood is every batch, every shipment is different. It's not the same material every time. So we might end up with a lot of knots in the walnut this time. The next time it might be a lot of sap. At this stage of the process, we will basically defect 50% of the lumber. 50% of lumber is going to end up in the trash can at this point. Once we get the boards that we like, we'll take it to a upcut saw and we'll start cutting around the defects. We do a cross-cut operation first, which means we'll take the big board, turn it into smaller, shorter boards. The operator will have a cutlass that they go by, and it has the rough size for that part, the piece of the cabinet, and we'll go through, get the parts quantities the way they need to be set up. So once we cross-cut, then we'll just go to a standard table saw, and we'll dress the edge so we get a nice size part to be able to put on the CNC machine later stage.
Once the boards are cut down, they head to the drawer department. Here, even the smallest pieces are shaped on machines that have been running for decades, a blend of old world tools and modern precision.
So this is our drawer department. We just have a series of saws, and some of these saws are quite old. You can look at some of the maker's marks, and it's really fascinating as you go through the factory. We have some of the original machines that we've been using for 80 years. And the maker marks, if you look at the cast iron, a lot of these machines will say they're made in like New York City. And when you think about it, machines like this aren't made in New York City anymore. So it's kind of fascinating. It's a piece of history. So the operator will go in and he'll take either hardwoods or poplar and start cutting the little pieces parts for the drawers. So we'll go through, we've got some of the machines that are set up for grooving, and we've got some of the machines that are set up for cutting the length. So here you can look at this table. This represents a typical drawer side that we would make. So this is poplar, so we've got a drawer slide groove, we have a bottom groove, and then we have some of our joinery grooves that have been cut into it. So we will do that at this stage of the operation.
Individual boards are joined together to create a solid panel, perfectly flat and square, so the chest will hold its shape for generations to come.
So this is our milling and machining area. So after we rough cut the parts, we'll send the parts out, and this is where we start joining the pieces of wood, joining the panels. So these machines here, this is a tongue and groove machine, and what these machines will do is they'll start cutting the tongue and groove pieces on the lumber parts. So this would be a cap. This is a plywood bottom. So what we'll do is we'll start running the parts through the machines. In this case, the bottoms of the chest are kind of a laminated sub-assembly. We have a hardwood cap that we join to a piece of plywood. We use plywood in some of the parts of the chest, the bottom, the back, the top of the chest. What the plywood does is it provides stability over the life of the product. If we were to use a solid hardwood, that's one of the things about hardwood is it's constantly moving because of moisture, expansion, and contraction. So we really want to stabilize key parts of the box with plywood parts. This is a side panel. So this is all hardwood here. This would be the side of the toolbox. And you can see we've got 1, 2, 3 parts that we've glued together, tongue and groove. And then we have another piece we join across the top. And later on, we'll explain why that wood is running a different direction on the panel. So once the parts are tongue and grooved, we go through a glue-up process. So here we have our glue wheel. Whether it's a side panel or a plywood panel, what we'll do is we'll put the parts in here, tighten them down, and then as that clamp rotates, it allows enough time from the moment it goes in to when it comes out, enough time for that glue to dry. So once we get all the way around, we can start taking the parts out and prepping them for the next operation.
With the panels ready, it's time for CNC machining and assembly. Every cut, every joint has to be flawless before the parts can become a finished chest.
So once all the panels have been glued up, we will run them through a wide belt sander. The wide belt sander will remove the excess glue, and then we're trying to take the panel to a specified thickness. In this case, the tool chest sides will sand at a 1/2 inch before we send them to the CNC machine. So here we're setting up for a job. This would be a model 2009 chest. And what we're trying to do is when the CNC cuts a cycle of parts, these are all the parts to one cabinet. So once this machine stops running, we can start the assembly process, put it in a clamp. Now we have a completed chest. The parts are held in place with a vacuum. so there's no mechanical hold downs. So once we turn the vacuum on, this part is sucked to the table, and it'll stay that way during the machining process, and then we can turn the vacuum off to remove the parts.
Before any finish is applied, each piece is sanded smooth and each drawer is hand fitted to its cabinet, a level of care you won't find in mass production.
This is our sanding department, and there's a handful of operations that we do in here. One of the more important operations is the drawer fitting, and this is just an example of one of the chests that we make, one of the smaller collectible chests. So one of the things that we do here at Gerstner is it's not a one-size-fits-all for the drawers to the cabinet. We actually go through a process where we will take each individual box and a set of drawers, and we'll go through a process of sanding and fitting the drawers to the cabinet. So each cabinet goes through this process, and once the drawers are fit to the cabinet, then those are unique to that cabinet. Those drawers will not be put in another cabinet. So during the fitting process, we'll write a number in the bottom of the box, and then after the drawers are fit, we'll remove the drawers, and we will number them in a sequence so that that drawer gets back to the exact location that it was fit in the chest. Now, some of our chests have theoretically the same size drawers in a couple spots, but after the fitting process, this drawer was fit to that side of the cabinet. It has to go back to that side of the cabinet, in the same way with this. So on some of the boxes, if we have 6 small drawers, we'll put the box number, position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So each drawer is uniquely identified to that chest. And then after the fitting process, we'll take and send the box over to be sanded. So here's an example of a box when it comes upstairs. It's really a diamond in the rough at this point. It can have filler on it, excess glue, none of the surfaces are flushed up. So the purpose of the sanding process is to get all that sanded down and prepare the product for finish. So one of the tools that we use these very large upright belt sanders, and we could take the box and sand the panels so that they're nice and flush and flat. So we'll go through a process where we'll basically take off a majority of the overhang and take the defects out on the sanders before we go to the fine sanding or the hand sanding. So the last step in the sanding process would be going through with a hand sander, and we're sanding each of the sides or faces to prepare it for finish. At this point, we're doing a fine sand at about 120 grit.
Gerstner uses hand-applied oil stains to bring out the natural grain of the wood. It's slower, but it lets the beauty of the wood shine through, instead of hiding it under heavy pigments.
One of the things that we prefer to do with our product is use a wiping stain. And what the operator will do is we'll go through and we'll take an oil-based stain and we start applying it by hand. That process is very labor-intensive. Most of the furniture industry puts the color in the spray and then they spray that onto the product. We buy premium hardwood, so we want to see the character of the wood underneath. We don't want to hide it with a cheap finish. So we'll actually take a considerable amount of time applying the stain to the wood to enhance the beauty of the wood. So this is our finishing spray booth. So we use 2 types of finish. We use a high solids sanding sealer, and we'll go through and the very first application that we put on the wood is a high solid sealer to seal the grain. And then we'll come through with a 320 grit sandpaper and we'll sand the finish. And then we'll come in with a high gloss top coat. So some of the woods, like the cherry, they'll absorb finish a lot more than the oak because the oak is very dense. So in some cases, we might do a second top coat on the cherry just so we get a sheen that matches the rest of the product line. So we're kind of getting to the end of the process. This is our hardware department. And this is where we start to attach all the corners and the locks and the catches. This right here is our 1401 EDC, one of the smaller chests we make. So we'll go through, put the hinges, the corners, everything on, all the shiny stuff. We've got brass that's popular, but our most popular finish on the hardware is nickel.
After finishing, the The final details bring it all together: hardware, felt lining, and thorough inspection to ensure it meets their exacting standards.
We've got our felting operation that we do, and then our final inspection. Now the felting is kind of unique.
Sure.
We've got our acrylic felt that we use, and this glue machine here, which obviously isn't very pretty. This thing, we use a protein-based glue, or a hide glue. And it's kind of a unique adhesive from the standpoint that it's very user-friendly for us to install fabric into the cabinet. Think of this as like a hot melt glue stick. So there is some heat that's applied to this, and it's a water-based glue. So when we run a piece of fabric through here, we can put it into the product and press it down, and as that glue cools, which is very rapidly, it gets very tacky. So once we press the fabric in, it'll stay down. It's not like a white glue where we have to wait for the glue to dry. The other nice thing about hide glue is it's one of the few glues that actually rebonds over the top of itself, and it's also used in musical instruments. So 50 years from now, when we go to refinish this, all you have to do is add a hot water to the felt and peel it right out, and then you can put a fresh piece in. So once we have everything felted, at this point we've done all the sanding, we've done all the finishing, the hardware's been attached, we've got the liners in the cabinet. The next step would be, and the final step is final inspection. So our inspector, as we go through the process of inspection, he will check the functionality and the aesthetics of every product, making sure that everything functions properly. And the inspector's job is to grade the product accordingly. So here at the factory, we have a first class, a second class, and a third class grade that each product can get. We're obviously shooting for first class, but if there is something that the inspector doesn't like, he will tag that product as a second class, and that means that there's a minor issue with it. His job is not to make first class product. His job is to grade the product accordingly. So we want, with our quality control, we want to maintain a stringent guideline for quality of product leaving the factory. If he gets a batch of boxes that he's not happy with, he will not hesitate to mark them as seconds. Seconds, for the most part, are caused by improper sanding of the veneers. So as I had mentioned downstairs, the top of the box is a veneered plywood. The back of the box is a veneered plywood. The veneer is very thin. It's 10/1000ths of an inch thick, and it's very easy to burn through that laminate of veneer. So in most cases, there was something that was processed and we might have burned through the veneer, even if it's a little spot. Once the inspector sees that, he will mark that product as a second-class product. So one of the other services that we provide is restoration for older chests. So here's an example of a box. This is 1940s, 1942 vintage. So this cabinet has been sent back to us to be restored. In a lot of cases, the restoration process is going to be way more expensive than a new product. In most cases, this is something that somebody has inherited. It's got a high degree of sentimental value. So they will typically, a family member will inherit a chest. It might have been a grandfather's. He's retired from a factory after working for 50 years. It gets passed down to the grandchildren, and the family want to preserve that memory. So we will go through and we will disassemble. We'll take this cabinet apart. We'll refinish the wood. They can choose either original hardware to be replated, new hardware, anything that needs done. It's at the discretion of the customer. In some cases, there might be something that was etched into the box, and we will get specific instructions not to remove that. So it's really kind of neat. Each of these boxes tells a story, and it's a very painstaking process to do it. Some of the boxes that come in for restoration, most of them are in very good shape. Some of them, it might have been a situation where it was damaged in a fire or a basement flooded, and it has severe structural issues. And we can go in and remove individual panels and replace those panels with new components. But here again, this is something that there's usually sentimental value involved. So we have one guy that's trained to do this. It's a very unique process.
Gerstner doesn't just make new chests, they also restore old ones. Some arrive scarred by decades of use or damage from fire or floods, but they carry priceless memories, and that's where Isaac comes in.
My name is Isaac Wilhoit. I'm in charge of the restorations, restoring older boxes that come in for repair. This is two examples of what I do, this one being finished and this one. I've not taken any steps to restore this one quite yet. Even a full restoration probably takes like maybe 2 weeks, even if it's extensive. And sometimes it's a full restoration and they want everything fixed. Sometimes it's a partial restoration, like in this case. They actually wanted the top color matched to match the front panel. And so this would be an example of like a partial restoration where the customer doesn't want everything done. They wanted the felt replaced, so that's new. And then this is an example of like a partial restoration where they only select a few services that we provide and they don't select every service.
After seeing the process from start to finish, it's clear Gerstner isn't just making tool chests. They're preserving a legacy of craftsmanship, of family, and of American manufacturing, and still a legacy alive here in Dayton today.
The only thing else that could be considered a tool chest that's on the market these days is metal. There's nothing else that's made in the United States that is wood anymore. The last of our competitors died out in the 1960s, basically. So hands above anything else is the materials that's out there. Nobody is using the craftsmanship that was innate to America, the drive to actually build something with your hands. So that's an old world sort of value that I think we see pockets of resurgence every now and again where people get tired of kind of a throwaway society. Legacy is something that you want to preserve, that you want to have carried on or passed down. It's a legacy of the manufacturing knowledge. It's a legacy of what the family has done itself in regards to being in the Dayton area, employing generations of people. We've had generational employees here where a father and his son comes into the business here and they're working here at the same time, and then the father retires. It's just, legacy means so many things as far as not just the product being able to be passed down through the generations. It's been a generational family business, and it's something I'd like to see continue for as long as people like Gerstner products. We'll make them.
Spending a day inside Gerstner Sons is like stepping back in time, but their commitment to quality is timeless. These chests are more than toolboxes, they're heirlooms, built to outlast their owners. And as long as there are people who value craftsmanship, Gerstner will keep building them. Right here in Dayton, Ohio.